The second episode of Outlander Season 4 is more history lesson than romance. If you wanted your steamy scene, you were straight out of luck. Jamie had his shirt on the whole time. So here's a throwback picture just so you don't forget what he looks like you could. Jamie, Claire, Ian, and Rollo have all arrived at the beautiful plantation home of his Aunt Jocasta, River Run. I guess some people really do have a rich aunt. That must be nice. But when big money's involved, there are always strings attached. And the same is true for Jamie and Jocasta. Even though she looks like his mother, she cannot see him because she is losing her vision. And she's kind of rude about it in a very passive-aggressive way. I mean, I guess if I was losing my sight and I was old, I might be rude too. There are plenty of examples, but at one point she has the slaves make a dress for Claire and makes several comments about what she might look like. All derogatory. The slave stands up for Claire's looks, but it is clear that the woman wants to be cutting. Speaking of slaves, that's the main theme of this episode, and rightfully so. It was very interesting to watch slavery through the eyes of someone who knows better, but then is immersed in a culture where it's just the norm. Aunt Jocasta assumes that Claire is a Quaker when she makes her feeling about owning people known. And while Jamie does not like slavery and is clearly against the practice, he feels caught in the middle between his aunt and his wife. Not to mention the fact that without telling him, Jocasta announces to the entire room of friends that she's giving River Run and everything it owns to her nephew, including the people, which of course Claire is furious about. She doesn't want to own people, and nobody can blame her. So Jamie starts to argue with his aunt and tells her that he doesn't want to own the people, and it turns out that he really cannot easily set them free. It all comes to a head when Rufus, a slave, is gored by a white man and then cuts his ear. They're in the process of killing him when thankfully Claire and Jamie step in and save his life. Only to the outrage of everyone on the plantation and the plantation surrounding them. They want this man who dared to defend himself to be hung. Claire takes him back to the house, puts him on the dining room table, and starts to save him, which confuses everyone around them. Her rule is first, do no harm, and so she's just trying to do her best to save this man's life. It's horrible and a very gruesome injury. Jamie is there defending her and even got out his guns when they wouldn't let her take the man to save him. Ultimately, Claire and Jamie do what they can and Aunt Jocasta tries to run interference, but it's just not enough. And a giant mob comes to the house. I hate mobs. When I was a little girl and I was watching Beauty and the Beast and the mob comes to get the beast and everybody's like, this is bad, but it really wasn't bad, it's always terrified me. I'd rather have a real villain any day than a big group of people who think they know the villain. Eventually, Claire and Jamie give Rufus medicine to take his life before he's handed over to the mob. And while he's laying there dying, he does talk to Claire about his sister, who he knew before he was taken from Africa. This whole episode was just heavy subject matter. It's difficult to imagine being taken back to a time where something is deemed as normal, but you know that it's sinful and disgusting and wrong, and you're the only person saying anything about it. Even though Jamie's bothered by it, it's normal. And I think that's how a lot of people must have been, and it's just horrific to think back on and then wonder what we're doing today that someone will look back and say, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you do more? The mob still won by taking the body and hanging it, but Claire and Jamie took away a little bit of their power. And even though it wasn't enough, it was still something.